Welcome back to episode 47 of Lost in Translation with Bobby Martin. We are back here in the WCTV studios in Wilmington, Mass. After being at Holy Cross for the last one. We are joined today by one of URI's all-time greats, players, ambassadors, people, a stellar career there, 13-year professional career both in the States and abroad. Now runs an AAU and training program. Dawan Robinson, thank you for joining us today.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, fellas. I appreciate it.
So it's sort of a question that I always ask, and it's pretty out there, but I just love the different answers that we get on it because have had such a sort of lifetime of hoops, and you're almost 40. But like when you think of the game of basketball today, like what does basketball mean to you?
It means everything. You know what I mean? This was my way of life as a kid. I've always loved it. I always had a huge passion for it. I still have that passion. I knew I didn't want a job. I knew I didn't want to work a 9-to-5 after playing. I knew I wanted to work with kids, and I knew I had to be in the gym. Every day, I have to go to the gym just to feel the ball. So I still have that passion and that love. It still drives within me. Ever since I was a kid, you know what I mean? I knew exactly what I wanted. And man, big fella here was talking about just passion, how these kids, I don't see the passion in these kids. That was something that kind of motivated me as a kid.
Yeah, that's awesome. We in talking to Dawan pre-taping, we were talking about how do you get through to the kids, and he was just explaining to me his passion. And I think one of the things we agreed on is that they've got to figure out why they love it. There's the passion will drive you, but the meaning, is that compass that keeps you going. As I think all the three of us as athletes had really figured out what it meant to us, and what it meant to us decided what our actions would be.
And it's interesting when you talk about how people found that passion because it comes at different times for different people. Bobby, we had talked about basketball wasn't your first passion.
Right.
It became your passion, but
right.
You were into the arts, you were into performance, you were into music and acting and all these things. And sort of like, I don't want to say basketball chose you. You're a very large human being, but there are plenty of very large human beings who don't have that passion, and it doesn't work out because they don't have it. You got that passion from sort of getting knocked down and being like, no, actually, I'm kind of about this. But like, Dawan, how did basketball come into your life, and how did you realize, like, this is my thing?
Well, in the beginning, I loved basketball, but I loved many other sports. I used to do gymnastics. I played football. You know what I mean? I did a lot of other sports, but basketball always was something different. You know what I mean? Basketball was the one sport that I would drop everything for to go play that sport. All the other sports, I didn't feel the same way about that. You know what I mean? So I knew at around 8, 9 years old, my brother played basketball as well. So me and him would always go to the parks and play basketball throughout the day, throughout my young life. So it was something that I gravitated to at a very young age. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do once I started playing with that basketball. Like you said, sometimes it doesn't call you. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't choose the ball. Sometimes the ball just chooses you. And that's something that happened with me at a very young age.
So talk to me about your upbringing in Philadelphia. I'm particularly interested in that. It's my brother from across the bridge.
I know,
right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
We spoke at the Sunny Hill League. In Philadelphia, we just talked about. We used to play. Where we go? I think it was 34th and Haverford.
Yeah, 34th.
I think it was right. We used to go to 34th and Haverford, play outside all the time, and you what the mob call it? Earn your bones.
Earn your bones.
Something like
Yep.
that.
It was different.
That's where you do it,
Yep,
man.
that's
Up
what
in
we do.
McGonigal Hall. But tell me about your experience in Philadelphia.
Oh man, Philadelphia was a wild city. You know what I mean? Ever since I was born, I saw some things that kids shouldn't have seen, and it molded me into who I am today. You know what I mean? It made me tougher. You know what I mean? Playing in the playgrounds where I've been in games where they'll tell you, look, you make this free throw, we're gonna shoot the park up, and gunshots would ring out. So I grew up in a rough environment, but it molded me as a player. I was a tough, hard-nosed player. I was gritty. I was willing to do all the dirty work. I loved playing defense. I was scrappy, but more so, I just had that sense of toughness. In the early years, it was more so outside, playing in the parks. You know what I mean? As a young kid, I didn't really play organized basketball. I didn't play a lot of AAU once I got into high school. I was more so of a street ball player. I loved playing in the parks. I loved that environment, playing in front of these
Nothing
chaotic.
like
it was nothing like it, you know what I mean? And I gravitated to that. Those parks and that environment woke me up. I wanted to play in front of those people. Then I got older, you know. I had an older brother who really helped me out throughout the whole course of my career. Then I got older, and I started to gravitate more into Sunny Hill League and stuff like that. Before, I didn't play in those leagues, but everybody played in those leagues, so I said, I guess I got to go play in Sunny Hill League. Played in Sunny Hill League, which was a monumental league growing up in Philadelphia. Everybody had, and you ran into everybody. Every player that was somebody, you would see him in Sunny Hill League.
I remember going to a couple games there with my dad when I was a kid in like the 4th or 5th grade, because my dad was he was a basketball lifer. You know, he played out at UMass and then stayed involved in everything. And I remember Lou Rowe and Rasheed Wallace playing in the Sunny Hill League, and it being like, even then, being like, these are two future NBA guys. And you couldn't, a lot of high school early, you can't, but it was just like, it was. They were kids, but they were grown men playing on the court.
And that era was like that was the era of the big men, because you had Rasheed Wallace, you had Rondell Turner, you had Mark Jackson, you had Lou Rowe, you had Malik Rose, Tyrone Weeks.
That's right. Yeah,
it was so many it was so many bigs that all were pros.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So coming back in the day, you had to go through some monsters if you was a big man to make it out. You know what I mean?
I will say, not a big man, but one thing that I remember the rep on
Jay Lawson.
on Dawan when he he was at URI was, you know, typically it's like you don't want to run into a screen that a big sets. Dawan's not really set many screens, but I remember the rep was like, you want a loose ball, you don't want to be running into him on a loose ball, because you're going to be feeling it for like the next week after that. He was guard, but like a powerful player even as a guard was something that was the rep back then.
Oh yeah, that's whoever the screener is. They got to guard themselves, because you'll end up with a bruised lung.
I'm running through them screens, man. Exactly. There was a few that I couldn't run through, but I mean, for the most part, I wanted to let the big men know, like, it's going to be a little fight here. You keep trying to set these screens.
Yeah, exactly.
But a guy like you, I'm not running through those screens from him. I'm going under or something.
So, you know, you mentioned like when you were younger playing pickup, and we were having this conversation before we got on earlier. And we're going to talk about, you know, you run AAU, you train, and there are a lot of pros to sort of the new era of hoops as far as individualization, exposure. If you're in with the right trainer and the right AAU program, you get wonderful attention and expertise. But I do feel like there is a happy medium that we haven't found, a balance between the training and the specialized attention and the exposure circuit for AAU and the like gritty, like hard knock, real world, like pickup world, which when we were growing up, and Bobby, when you were growing up, I'm sure, like pickup basketball was like, I mean, it was its own like like animal or environment, or like it was those games people would be playing in summer days, you know, like it was game 7 of the you know NBA finals. You're diving on concrete. It's like there was like pride, and you'd have young high school stud players, you'd have like grown men that were like young studs at some point, and now they're living in the real world, and this is their outlet. And like for the young kids, like you get a layer of toughness by you know, a guy you probably know, TJ Sorrentine. Me and him talked about
my God.
About there was a toughness that you developed as a high school kid, even as a middle schooler, when every once in a while you'd get out in one of those games by playing against college dudes, grown men,
old heads.
I feel like it's something that has been lost a little bit.
Even playing on that cement, you know, falling down on the ground and scraping your knees, all of that stuff made you tougher.
And you decide real quick, am I about this or not?
Yes, you do decide very quick. You know what I mean? And the older guys, they were not taking it easy on you. You know what I mean? So you had to learn, and you had to be ready, or you couldn't play. You know, that was the thing back in the day. Like, you had to be ready, or you couldn't play. Nowadays, you don't have to be ready, and you can still play. That's where things got a little different now. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Always. Do you remember hoop and the style? I'm sure Bobby is a little older than us, but different. But you remember like recess in middle school, literally wearing jeans but you'd have basketball shorts underneath them in case a game broke out.
That was
and
elementary.
Out there. Yeah, elementary school. Yeah,
I remember bringing my basketball to elementary.
Yep.
Just for recess. We would get to school early. We would have recess before school. We would go to the playground before school to have like a whole game. You know what I mean? Go into the school, come back out, play again for recess, and then play afterwards.
After school,
that's how serious it was. We was coming to school early just to play.
I remember playing for hours, and sometimes in I hate to put this out there, but my like size 4X Boss jeans that I probably would still be big on me today back then, but like. I mean, it was everything. My elementary school, I remember when I switched to it, had a full size, like NBA size, full court concrete outside. So like you could get it wasn't like a shortened court. You get real games out there, but they were intense.
Yeah, they were intense. I mean, it was a lot of fights before school. You know what I mean? That's how serious it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have to go through that, man. When we played outside, we got there early. But, it got to the point where we would get there so early that I went to Catholic school, that the nuns would we had a detachable rim, so they would have to take it out so we couldn't play, before school. So we were just playing dodgeball or something like that, up against the wall when you could actually hit somebody with a ball.
Remember handball?
Handball, yes. Different type of handball, yes, sir. Man.
That was fun, though, man. But it kept us out of trouble.
Yeah.
Growing up in Philadelphia, where it was so much chaos around you, we kind of found a safe place, you know what I mean? And then the guys that was doing like the bad stuff, they didn't mess with the basketball players back in those days.
Points.
We were like protected, you know what I mean? Like no matter what was going on, it was like, look, don't mess with him. If he was a star player, they was like, look, don't mess with him. Nowadays, these kids don't care who you are.
Well, they would even tell you, I remember when I was young, they would even tell you, young fella, you don't even need to be around here. You don't live this type of life, get on out of here.
They would protect you.
Right, yes. You need to go.
You. Like they would tell you, you have a future. Don't come around here. You know what I mean?
So a question that I have, and maybe it's a little bit complicated, but a question that I have is, you talked about growing up in Philly, seeing stuff that young kids shouldn't see, a lot of sort of tough stuff, and it making you a tougher player. But in talking to you and everything I hear from you, like Mike St. John's a good friend of mine, and he's put us in contact. Yep. I know you're a guy that has a big heart underneath it. You're a dad. You run all this. You could be doing anything, but you're spending your time with kids and with players and everything. How growing up did that environment? It made you a tougher person, but it didn't like harden your heart against doing good things in the world.
Because I had both parents in the household. I didn't understand how vital that was until I got older, and I took a look back and I started thinking about my friends, and I said, none of these guys had both parents in the household. If they had one parent, a lot of them was raised by aunts, uncles, grandparents. I didn't understand how important that was until I got older. Even though I was raised around all of this chaos, I had a mom and a dad that was strict. Come in the house when the street lights come on. Don't disrespect your teachers. Don't disrespect adults. You can't hit your brothers or your sisters in the face. You can't even hit the girls. So I was raised with values and morals. There was certain things that I couldn't do, even though I was raised around all of this poverty and all of this violence. You know what I mean? So I had two strict parents that wasn't going for it. So that's why we read the Bible. You know what I mean? We had to sit at the table to eat meals. So all of those little things that everybody around me was not getting, I was still getting at home. Yeah. So that's why I still see things clear. You know what I mean? A lot of my other friends were staying out late, and I would get mad, like, Dad, they're staying out. Why can't I stay out late? At a certain time, it's a lot of bad things that's happening around those times. So my parents saved me, you know what I mean? And they got me to understand what life was really about. That's why I still see things clear, and that's why I have a heart, you know what I mean? Because these kids, I love these kids. I really do love these kids, you know what I mean? Because I see a lot of myself in them. I see a lot of my friends in them, and I just want the best out. I tell them, look, man, if you make it, I'm not the guy that's going to be calling you, asking you for nothing. You know what I mean? I don't care. You don't even have to say hi to me no more. I just want to see you make it. That's all I want. I don't post videos of all of these kids that I train, and I so many senior nights that I went to that I probably didn't even post because I'm not here to show everybody else what I'm doing.
Right. It's their night. It's their night.
This is your life. It's not about me.
That's right.
I'm just here to help. This is not about me. It's about them. That's why I see all of these other trainers. They only post the pictures for marketing. Yeah. Maybe I'm a bad marketer. but I'm not doing it for that. You know what I mean? Because I really care. I really do care. And the parents see that, the kids see that. You know what I mean? So it shows.
Bobby's the same way, you know. It's like it's one of those things. If you were to look at his like Instagram, you would have no idea that he's like training. But like the number of kids that he's impacted that have come through his gym, and it's sad, sort of in this day and age that like people will be like, well, to be really successful, you need to market yourself. But like it's like if you're only focused on the marketing or that's your main focus, the kid gets lost in it. So it's like it's. I mean, the way you guys are doing it, it definitely puts the kid first.
I'm a big fan of, you can't hide BS for too long. People are eventually going to see through it.
Yeah.
So even if you're doing all of these pictures, posting it, if something isn't real, the parents are going to see it.
Right.
More importantly, the kids see through it now these days. You know what I mean? So if you're doing something and you're not really posting it, it's still going to flourish because you're doing it for the right reasons. And that's how I kind of live my life. Long as you're a good person and you're doing things for the right reason, you're going to be blessed. And so far, it's been working for me. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to stay on the same track of not doing it for no other reason but for the kids and for just doing it for the right reasons. You know what I mean?
So I'm curious. So the basketball journey itself, you realized when you were, younger that this was your thing. And you had you had talent, not some talent, that diminishes it. You had, exceptional talent. How did it come about? How did you wind up at URI? I always have a soft spot for URI. Growing up as a kid, we went to a lot of UMass games with my dad being an alum. We always, every year for like 10, 15 years in a row, one of those games would be UMass URI at URI. And so URI sort of became like my second team. UMass was my team, but like there was when they had Catino and Tyson Wheeler, and they made it all the way to the Elite Eight, and they were a collapse away from being in the Final Four. Always loved them, but tiny state. It is Division I. It was in the A-10. The A-10 was better when you were there, obviously, than when it is. But like, there are a lot of schools. Philly to URI, how does that happen?
I knew I didn't want to be in Philly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I averaged 32 in high school at Martin Luther King High School.
You was a king? Okay.
Yeah. And I was killing guys. You know what I mean? I had nothing. Not even a letter.
Not even Drexel?
Not one Philadelphia school.
Is you're too small? Not a true point guard.
Temple said I was too small. Okay. Temple always liked bigger guards.
That was Dunphy?
It was Cheney.
It was
Cheney was my uncle's best friend.
Okay.
So I used to see him at my uncle's house. You know what I mean? Like, look, man, where's the scholarship at? You know what I mean? So I that was kind of like a chip on my shoulder. I had to go to prep school. I went to MCI. I had a great season at MCI.
Maine Central Institute?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you about that.
Yep.
Go.
And I had a great season there, and I had like 7 Division I offers on the table afterwards.
Okay.
You're going to like this. So I verbally committed to Pitt.
I knew I liked you.
My sister went there.
Okay.
My brother went to Penn State McKeesport, which is
went
not
to
too far.
McKeesport,
So everybody was up in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And my mom was like, you should reach out to that man at URI, Desmond Oliver. He recruited.
Okay.
He's one of
Coach
my
Oliver,
great friends now.
Yep.
And I was like, let me call him back. He was a good guy. Called him back, man, and D.O. talked me out of it. Like, look, man, you're going to sit, you know what I mean? So I was like, you know what? I was like, so I got to URI, and that's how, you know what I mean, I got to URI, and it's been a blessing. You know what I mean? I love being up here. It's been nothing but beautiful here, and I'm raising my family here. I just knew I couldn't stay in Philadelphia. With my personality,
right?
It wouldn't have. And my mom and them, they're like, look, don't come back. Because I still have, I'm getting older now. And playing overseas, I was away from my family for a long time, since 17 years old. I missed a lot of birthdays, missed a lot of holidays. I've forgotten family members' names, cousins, aunts, uncles. You know what I mean? And that's kind of embarrassing when you go back home. And they're like, you don't remember me? And I'm like, you know what I mean? So as I get older, I'm like, hey, I don't want to be away from my parents and something happen. You know what I mean? So it's been kind of like, do I move back home? I was this close to moving back home maybe like 2 months ago.
Okay.
And I said, look, I'm not ready yet. I still got a lot to do with Life of Hoops here in Rhode Island. So that's what kept me here. And I think it was the right decision.
What was MCI like? You know, when you go up there from Philly up to Maine, I know prep is, you know, you're kind of, but it's got to be a very different experience.
Very different. I never forget, it was a last minute thing. We had to get $3,000. We didn't have it. I had 3 brothers that I was really cool with, and one of them I was really cool with. The other 2 older brothers, you know, I was cool with them because I was best friends with the younger brother.
Okay.
And true story, we was riding in the car, and we couldn't come up with the money. And I was asking him for some drugs to sell. And he looked at me like, this is how friends used to be. And he looked at me and was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, look, man, what happened with the prep school? And I'm like, man, we just couldn't get the money. How much is it? $3,000. He looked at me and you only need $3,000, man? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, 3 only. You know what I mean? We're struggling to get this. He called his other 2 brothers. They brought the money to my house the next night. All 3 of them in person to my mom and dad.
Cash.
And we drove up 11 hours, maybe like a few days after. 11 hours. As soon as I get there, they're like, hurry up. We're going to, I think it was like a Bob Gibbons tournament.
Okay, yeah,
and,
Bob Gibbons, wow.
Big time tournament.
Wow.
I don't know nothing about this stuff. Remember, like when I was growing up playing basketball, I didn't have dreams to make it to the NBA. I just loved playing. I didn't even think about playing professional. I didn't think about playing in college. I just knew I wanted to keep going. And whatever was next was what I was willing to do. So we get up there, and he's like, look, hurry up, take your stuff off. You know what I mean? We're about to bust, ready about to leave. Grab some sneakers and some shorts. Grab some sneakers and shorts. We went up to the first tournament. I killed the tournament. You know what I mean? And it started. So that's how I got to MCI. Catino Mobley, great friend of mine. You know what I mean? Always been a mentor. Working out with him in high school, he always taught me a lot of new things. Him and Alvin Williams and Jonathan Haynes, all Villanova, you know, Villanova guys. Yeah. So I had some good friends, older guys that was helping me out. And I knew the history of Catino going there, a lot of Sam Cassell, Brad Miller, a lot of guys that went there. So I was excited to go there. I heard about Max Good. I didn't get a chance to play for Max Good, but I heard a lot about MCI going up there. And I just tried to make it my best. Now, coming from Philadelphia, man, before I left, my cousin got killed. He got murdered in front of me, man. And it was hard for me. Got shot in the face, and I was there the whole time. I saw him on the ground fighting for his life. So I wanted to get as far away from Philly as possible after that. So I was like, look, I got to get out of here. So Maine was perfect. I got a chance to be by myself, think a lot, and mature a lot. You know what I mean? Nobody was there to help me out. I had to wash my clothes, learn how to cook, all of that stuff. But it helped me become a man. And it was just what I needed at the right time because I just had to get out of Philadelphia at that time. So that's how I got up there, and I made the best out of it.
So I'd like to hear your perspective. I heard you say that, you know, you just wanted to find out what you could do, right? You wanted to keep going. I think those were your words. You wanted to keep going. When you're dealing with so many young kids in this era, and what do you do when you see them, when it appears to you that they're giving up so easily? Because, you know, everybody's got a story, right? Your story is much more colored, much more profound than a lot of these kids. But when you see those kids give up, you know, because you know, for the kids today, for them, there is no tomorrow, right? And with the advantages that they have, you know, like you had mentioned earlier, well, they're spoiled, or not spoiled, but that they've got a lot of opportunity, and you want to help you want to help them reach those opportunities. How do you constantly deal with, what do you say to them? You know, what messages do you give them so they understand that this is not the end of the process, that you've got to keep going?
I always relate to life. I try to teach through life experiences. And I say, look, in life, things are going to get hard. I always go back to life. Things are going to be hard. Things are going to be challenging. You can't give up, because when you quit, there's only one way you're going to go, and that's down. You know what I mean? So these things are going to carve you and build you into the person, a strong person that you're ultimately going to grow up to be. I always just try to bring real life. I've been through a lot.
Right.
So I always tap into something that I've been through, a real life experience that can probably motivate them or encourage them or push them to keep going. So my teaching is through life experiences, and I feel like that's the best way to get them to understand what I'm trying to tell them. And most of the times they see the look in my eyes and how serious I am, and they kind of get it, you know what I mean? Because I'm always speaking to them from a real place, and I feel like these kids can connect with that. Like I said before, they see through the BS.
Yeah.
And if they know you're BSing them, they're not gonna listen to you. They're not gonna follow you.
So how do you feel about the ones that get away?
9 times out of 10 is from the parents.
Okay.
The parents are the worst right now because they think they know everything, you know what I mean? And they're not helping the kids. And none of the parents want to see their kids struggle.
Right.
And they need to struggle, you know what I mean? Because it's going to build character, you know what I mean? So the ones that get away, I see them now to this day, and I just look at them and I still talk to them like I love them. Because even though you got away, it's not over. Right. You're still going to go through another phase in life where things are going to come to you and you got to learn how to handle them. So even though they get away, they still come back. The ones that probably left, when they see me, they always come back and say, you were right. Well, thank you. And I try to help them from that point on. My door is never closed. You know what I mean? So even if you may have left and you thought that I was maybe too hard, because I'm a hard coach. Because I feel like we have to get back to that old school
What does that
teaching.
mean? What does hard coach mean?
I hold them accountable with everything they do. You can't scream at a player if you're not doing your job. And I talk to them just like that. I use profanity because you're listening. I'm real. You're going to listen to these curse words, you're going to hear it come from me. You know what I mean?
Use them.
Use them, you know what I mean? So I talk to them like men. I deal with these kids like adults. Even my little girls. You know what I mean? I don't scream at them. Like, girls are different. You got to talk to them different. You got to communicate different, or they'll shut down and quit. You know what I mean? You don't want that happening. But with my boys, I treat them like men because they think they men. All these little boys think they men. So I treat them like the men that they think they are. And I feel like that's how I get the most out of them.
You sound like you're from Philly.
I do want to say, you know, it's funny because I don't have an experience like it from when I was your age, but I do remember friendships. I do remember community. I feel like as an adult, you have kids and wife, and life gets away from you. And a lot of my friendships, I don't want to say neglectful, but like it's hard to put the same into them when you have other things. But I was really kind of choked up when you were telling me about your friend and his 2 brothers just coming up with the money, being like, no, you're not going to go out there and do this to get that. We got you. And I think about how important community is. I had a great sort of support system growing up. My parents were not together, but they were both. I was 50-50 between them, and they made a world of difference in the friends I had. You know, as an adult was really when I've needed more support, which sounds crazy, but you know, both my parents died unexpectedly in car accidents, and my wife 2 years ago was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, and she's in remission now, but it was really a ordeal. And you think that you've got everything worked out, wife, kids, jobs, making solid money, you're paying everything down, and then something like that comes around and it's like, did everything right, and suddenly we don't know how we're going to be able to pay our bills because she's out of work for a year, going through chemo, going through surgeries, and like the people really stepped up. I have a former teacher of mine who I won't even get into specifics, but how much she helped us get through it. Elementary school teacher, so it's really amazing. And just hearing that really sort of that hit me about that, you know, your friend and his brothers just coming through for you like that. Also, you know, hit me when you were talking about your cousin, and I think all 3 of us in this room have been through a lot of different traumas. Talking with Bobby, he is from childhood. I have. You obviously have. That is a very traumatic event. That is like a combat event.
It's still hard to talk about it.
And that's my question is, like, you know, people deal with things in all different ways. And I did not deal with my trauma for a long time. How did you deal with that in your life after that happened?
Just getting away, clearing my mind. I couldn't stay in that environment because it wasn't what I wanted for myself. And then I was able to see different places. Like driving up to Maine, I saw big houses, beautiful houses. I never seen that before. So I was like, wow, people really live like this. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is what I want. You know what I mean? Driving through Rhode Island, I was like, wow, people really seeing beach houses. I'm like, people really live like this.
Yeah.
So and a lot of my friends in Philadelphia, they just haven't seen anything. These guys haven't even left the city. You know what I mean? So they haven't seen anything that can open their mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I grew up in Philadelphia. It was violent. But everybody deals with things. You lost both of your parents. That had to be traumatic. That's probably equivalent to me seeing my cousin getting shot in the head. Everybody has their own problems. Just because I grew up in the worst area don't mean that my problems are worse than your problems. So everybody has to tap into themselves and find themselves. For me, it was getting away to peace and quiet. That's why I stayed in Rhode Island. It's peace and quiet. Give me time to think and get away. I needed to get away and get my mind together, and use basketball as a home where I can just release things. And that's what I did. I went up there. Nobody was there. I trained. I lived in the gym, and I got better. But I took all of my frustrations out through basketball. So the basketball saved my life.
You know,
I
it's
would have been
funny
dead
that-
or in jail.
Yeah.
Because growing up, we praised that lifestyle. We saw the drug dealers. I wanted to be that so bad. I wanted the respect, and I was willing to do anything for it. But my mom, my dad, my brothers, and my sisters, and basketball saved my life. And it's just that simple. The basketball saved my life.
That's amazing, man. I mean, I think what you touched on was perspective. You know, you said that a lot of your friends didn't see it, you know, and so you saw something different. You know, it's almost like looking at something like a 2D picture, and then all of a sudden you see something in 3D. You know, there's depth to it at that point.
And you feel like you could do it. When you see certain things, you're like, oh, I can do that. I want that.
There's power in that hope. And like, obviously, if you grow up in a rough environment, the deck's going to be stacked against you. If you grow up African American in the United States, you're going to have to overcome a lot more obstacles than if you grow up white. But like, so it's not here like, oh, everybody can you just dream it and you can achieve. Like, there's a lot of real shit that you're dealing with.
Right.
But there is so much power in seeing the possibility of something. And I think that's really huge that you hit on of, you saw the possibility by getting out, whereas your friends who never got out of the city, some of them never saw that possibility.
That's why it's important in the black community. See, the one thing in the black community is when we make it, we want to run away and never come back. But now the kids they don't have nothing to see and believe that they can achieve. Like, if they see a doctor coming around the neighborhood, I remember seeing an artist. He used to walk down my street every day, and we used to stop him and say, hey, can you show us your pictures?
Yeah.
And he used to show us these beautiful pictures. And it opened the minds of my friends who started drawing and stuff like this. So sometimes if you see a doctor, you'll say, oh, I remember him. He grew up next door. If he can do it, I can do it. But when we go and make it and never come back, it's not helping us all the time. You know what I mean? So it's a lot that goes into it, man. But I just have an open mind about about life because I've seen so much, man. I've seen so much.
Yeah, I mean,
so much death.
Even you being in Europe, I mean, that would have absolutely opened your eyes to something different also, right? That perspective, you know. It's I mean, I think we continuously learn, you know, as we get older. You know,
and that was a different phase.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You think you got it all figured out. And you're like, oh, I'm making money. You know what I mean? I'm making a lot of money. And then you go over there, and then that's another mental battle that you got to fight. I remember my first year in France.
What part of France were you in?
I was in, where was I? Limoges.
Limoges. Okay.
You know Limoges.
Yes, sir.
A lot of history.
Yep.
And
good team.
Great team.
Yeah.
And I was new. I never been over to Europe, so I was just like in the house all the time. But it helped me because I read the Bible for the first time, front to back, 2 times. You know what I mean? So, and the Bible helped me look at things different. You know what I mean? I was going to the gym 2-3 hours early. I led the league in scoring. I had a great year. But there's other obstacles. My next year, I went to Poland, and I'm in Poland.
Which one? Which team?
Wrocław.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I get there, and they're just calling me nigger like it's my name. Like, everywhere I went, my wife they're calling me nigger. Nobody has ever called me a nigger to my. So the first time I heard it, I was like, by the time it hit me, me and my wife was just looking at it like, we couldn't believe it. And then it kept happening. Then we got into a big brawl. But we had to start carrying knives because the brawl, these guys had brass knuckles. They was tearing poles. It was no joke.
World.
So this was a different, and I'm coming from Philly. I'm thinking I seen it all. I'm a tough guy. No, these guys don't care about where you from. They just want to see you bleed. They was picking up poles, pipes, throwing bricks at us, brass knuckles. It was insane. You know what I mean? So that's another fight that you got to mentally deal with. And then now you're a professional. So you can't handle violence with violence now. Now you got to figure out a different way. So in life, there's going to be so much thrown at you, but you have to use your brain and you have to understand what's going on. And you got to learn how to respond to it. You can't respond with violence all the time. Most of the time you can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to figure out another way to handle things. You know what I mean? So like I said, it's just a lot of things I had to learn throughout this journey of life. And I'm still learning. You know, now I'm back home, you know, and this is a whole different world now, you know what I mean, that I'm dealing with, you know what I mean? And I'm still learning. So this is what I teach these kids. My daughter, she hyperextended her knee. And she's like, yeah, Dad, it's different now. The coaches aren't talking to me all the time. And I'm like, look. This is what happens when you get hurt.
Now, how old is your daughter?
She's 15.
15.
I'm like, look, this
freshman?
is... Yep. And I'm like, I was hurt. I broke my feet 6 times. And I remember being in Europe when I broke my foot in Italy, leading the team and scoring best player on the team. The president walks in, he see I broke my foot. He looked at me and said, what are you doing still here? I'm like, what are you know what I mean? He wanted me gone because he was paying me money and I was hurt.
That's right.
So... it's life. When you're up, you're up. When you're down, you're down. You just got to take it and move on. But you can't let nothing break you. And these are the things that I teach my kids. Mental toughness.
So you're going through, Sam and I were talking about this the other day. So you've gone through all the disappointment. That would be the psychology of having to play basketball, right? This is what you chose to do. But now, because you choose to continue, right? Because you said you wanted this, that would be the philosophy of your life. What do I choose to do in those moments, right? You know, because nobody can come and help you at that point, right? There are no tools that they can give you. This is just you. This is coming from inside where you're saying, what is my philosophy on this? What is my outlook? How do I choose to handle my life, right? And you having gone through so much, I mean, I think the kids that you are involved with, it's a testament. These kids should know, I mean, they should know how fortunate they are to have someone with that type of experience being willing to help them. I mean, thank you. That's an awesome job.
Thank you. I'm just doing God's work. You know what I mean? I feel like everybody's here for a reason, and I feel like this was my calling. You know, I knew it's weird because I knew basketball wasn't gonna put me like there.
It's a vehicle.
It's a vehicle.
You get to steer it though. You get to drive it. Yeah.
But the injuries, I will always get injured right when I'm on the verge of just like, you know what I mean? In college, I got injured the year Jameer Nelson left, and they had me player of the year for the whole conference, preseason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I had NBA teams coming to my practices. I missed the whole year.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So overseas, I won a championship. And the coach, my agent, like, look, man, you win a championship. We talking about 800,000, like 7. We talking about some crazy numbers. I break my arm. So it was always something that happened to me, right? So I knew like basketball is not going to be the one that puts me there. You know what I mean? It's going to be something else. I feel like this is it for me. You know what I mean? No money. This is just, I'm at peace right now with what I'm doing and helping these. And I'm not just helping kids. I'm helping parents. I'm helping moms out that's being taken advantage of by these other AAU programs. And I'm being real with you. Like, look, you don't have to play for me. You don't have to play for me. But if you need some help, you can come and talk to me. Because these coaches are going to try to get over you. Don't let nobody get over you. Whether it's with me or anybody else. If you need any help, you come and talk to me. And that's how I am. I understand that some of these kids may not know. And they say, oh, coach, I'm going to go over here. I'm leaving. I'm going over here. For the wrong reasons. And then they come back to me usually later on. But I keep a lot of coaches take these things personal and they hold these little grudges against kids. You know what I mean? I see coaches do it all the time. They don't play a kid because they don't maybe like the parent. It's not fair to the that's a weak man.
It's a weak man.
You know what I mean? Because these are kids. They don't know no better. That's not their fault. You know what I mean? And that type of stuff pisses me off.
I'll never forget, and I don't want to make this about. Sometimes I'll talk about life experiences just based on them, but I will never understand coaches that hold parents against kids, and it's also I experienced it firsthand. So, one, this was something that my dad could not believe and was like, "Why did she do that?" I couldn't believe it. But my mom didn't understand the world. She was an outspoken lady from New York, and she wrote a letter to the local paper when I was like maybe a junior in high school about, and my younger brother had just finished like Little League and was getting ready for Babe Ruth is the next thing for baseball. She wrote some letter that's just like, I wish that there was another option for kids that love the game, but that they don't make one of the teams and it sort of ends, because kids haven't reached, they mature at all different levels, and it can they can be passionate about something, but they're just not physically mature yet, and they don't have any other option to continue staying connected with the sport. Now, youth sports can be incredibly petty with the people running them. She didn't name names. She wasn't taking shots at anyone, but she wrote this letter before my brother had a chance to try out for it. So one, the person who was the head of Babe Ruth basically made it so no team could take my brother. But he became the varsity coach at the high school and was overheard by some other parents saying, if it's up to me, Sam Perkins will never play at this school. And it became this whole thing. And they had to play me because there's a certain level of ability there.
Right, exactly.
But my own coach, I felt was looking for any reason to stick it to me for the rest of my time in high school because of my mom writing this little thing. And it's I didn't tell her to write it. I didn't have anything. I just wanted to play. And I didn't care about any of this stuff. But that always stuck with me about coaches that will stick it to players because of something between them and the parent, which I think is just, terrible. I do want to ask, I don't want to be remiss in this because the connection to the school and sort of not where it began, but where you reached the next level. What would you say about your time in Rhode Island? Because you were a great player. You had injuries at the worst times. You guys didn't make the NCAAs when you were there, right?
NIT twice.
Yeah, NIT twice, though. It springboarded you to the next level. But I think it was one of those, it probably didn't quite go the way that if it was up to you to write the storybook, you don't miss the whole year when Jameer and graduates. And, just what would you say about your time at URI?
My time at URI was great. I loved URI. I had a great time there. Coach Barron was great. He treated me like family. All the assistant coaches, Desmond Alla, all the assistant coaches that came through there were great. All of my teammates were great. We still keep in touch. That's why I'm still here. You know what I mean? I have nothing but great memories about Rhode Island and the University of Rhode Island. You know what I mean? I have nothing bad to say about them. Teammates, friends. I made some great friends. You know what I mean? I met a lot of great people. And URI holds a special place in my heart.
I want to ask you about Barron because Scott Hazelton was on our show before.
That's my brother.
And Scott talked about how Coach Barron basically saved his life, changed his life. I don't think that James Barron gets the respect he deserves because he came, right after URI had the NCAA tournament success. I think that URI and UMass, the fan bases there, are sort of out of touch with what those programs in the current landscape can be. They're never going to get back to what they were in the 90s when the A-10 could compete with the SEC and some other places. And I think Barron they had success. They didn't, have reached the level that a lot of the fans wanted. I know they brought in Hurley for a couple of years, and he's a totally different animal.
Totally different.
But when you talk to people that played for Coach Barron, they talk about the impact he made on them in a way I think an awful lot of college basketball coaches do not. I haven't made any secrets about the kind of business college basketball is. There are an awful lot of not great people in that business that are using players for their own, they don't care about their kids. They're using them as a vehicle to make money and try and make it to the next level. What would you say about Coach Barron?
Coach Barron cared. It wasn't all about basketball with him. The one thing he cared about was you getting a degree. He cared about that more than anything. You know what I mean? And if you wasn't ready, he would not allow. I saw him sit a player, Troy Wiley, who was unbelievably talented. Troy Wiley was a monster. I've seen him give David West 26 and 12. But academically, he wasn't there. So coach set him out for the first half of the year until he got his grades together. His main goal was to help us off the court and after college. That was the one thing that I really respected about Coach Barron. He really cared about us as people, not just as players.
Sam's talked. He talked about his experience with, overhearing the coach saying, Sam Perkins will never play, but he had the talent to do it. Okay, so the coach has to play you. So what's the lesson learned there? Coaches are whores to talent. All right, they will. Okay, they have to be whores to talent, right? You surpassed everybody's expectations. Ended up playing professionally. You got NBA. You got Europe. There are levels to this. Each kid thinks that they're at that certain level. Their expectations, right, at such a young age are totally, they're totally unaware is the best thing I could say. How do you deal with the kids? Because, they want it now. They're in an age where if they're good enough, they can get it now, but they can also work their way up into getting it if that's what they want, right? Yep. As much as, the things have gone on politically and, we're getting rid of so many things that have helped, inner city kids, this is still one of the ways in which these inner city kids can actually make a difference in their lives, but they can't do it with the philosophy, and this is just my opinion, they can't do it with the philosophy of, well, the world is against me, right? Because they're going to have to learn that while they're looking to get something from it, they've also got to give something to it.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And they're going to have to deal with coaches like Sam had, coaches like I had, coaches like you had. And there's that game that you are going to have to play to help them get what they need so you can get what you want.
I think you said it perfectly. I feel like if this is something that you choose to do, you have to understand what comes with it. And like we spoke about the mental side of it, like you have to be mentally ready to go through these things.
Right.
And just because things aren't looking good for you at the moment, it doesn't mean that it won't look good for you in the future.
Right.
I tell these kids, you want to get to 10. You think you're at 10. But you don't want to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Right.
I said you can't skip a step.
Yeah.
You can't. I started coaching like 3-4 years ago. Coach Jamal Gomes, he coached at Hendricken. He got me into coaching. I never wanted to be a coach. First year, we lost in the championship. Second year, we won the state championship. Third year, we lost in the semifinals. One thing he told me, I'm like, Coach, first year, I'm like, Coach, we're missing layups. These girls in high school, we missing a lot. He said, Dawan, you can't skip a step. It's like anything else. Right. I tell the kids the same thing. You want to get here. It's going to be obstacles. But you got to be willing to go through the obstacles to get where you want to go. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing I tell them. Right. You want to get to 10, you got to get ready to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. If you're not willing to go through that, and 1, 2, and 3 going to be tough years where you might not even think you're good enough to do it.
Well said.
You know what I mean? But this is a part of the process to get better. Are you willing to struggle at 2, 3, and 4 to see the light at 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? You know what I mean? And that's what I ask them. If they say yeah, then and right now you at 2, 3, and 4. But 5, 6, 7, and 8 gonna feel great once you get past 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know what I mean? So that's what I tell them. You know what I mean? But you gotta be willing to go through that. You gotta be willing to go through 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you're not willing to go through that, and 2, 3, 4, and 5 is gonna help you for 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So it all plays together. But if you're not willing to go through the hard times, and I tell them, don't get too high, don't get too low. When you score 30, one thing about me when I played, I never would look at my averages, because the one year I did, and it became mental. I was only playing for my averages.
Right.
So I said, look, I'm not doing that no more. I'm never looking at my stats. Like I might have a peak, like after a game, they got the little stat sheet, I'll look at it, but I never looked at my averages, because you start to play for that. So I will always hit the delete button. Like, all right, look, you did it, you got to do it again. You know what I mean? You have a bad game, it's okay. You get another game. You have a good game, it's okay. You got to do it again. So no matter what you do, good or bad, you still have to wake up the next day and get ready for whatever it is next. You might score 100 today. Tomorrow you might score 4. You know what I mean? Are you going to let the 4 bring you down to the bottom just because you have 4? You just had 100.
You ain't averaging but 52.
You know what I mean? Exactly. You know what I mean? So the biggest thing I feel like with this generation is the mental side of these things. You know what I mean? And having the right philosophy of why you're doing it. You know what I mean?
I don't mean to jump around because it's my ADD brain here. I'm going to blame it on that. But I got to ask, because I saw them. They came to play at BU. What was it like, that St. Joseph's team playing against them? They had 3 NBA guys. They had Jameer, they had Delonte West, they had their big man had a cup of coffee in the NBA too, Dwayne Jones.
Dwayne Jones,
I'll never forget Ryan Butt from BU. Worst name in college basketball. Looked like it. He was 6'8", 260, 280, not a built 260 or 280, couldn't jump, couldn't run, had every single up fake on the planet, and he gave Dwayne Jones the business in that game. Like, I will never forget, Dwayne Jones had like 2 points, 5 fouls, fouled out. Ryan dropped 20 on him. But like, that team, when they came to BU, was something. And what was it like playing against that St. Joe's team?
They had one guy that was one of the best defenders I've ever played against. Barley. What was his name? Something Barley.
Yeah.
But his
Tyrone? Was it Tyrone?
Something like Barley. Oh my gosh, his defense was. But everybody else, I wasn't like. I was a kid when I was young. I didn't. Like I said, I was playing out of love. So nothing. I never played with pressure because it was all fun to me. You know what I mean? So like playing against St. Joe's, I'm like, Philly team. I got to do good against them. I'm from Philly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never played with pressure because it's all so much fun to me. So playing against them, I didn't look at it like nothing special. You know what I mean? I knew Jameer because he was from Chester, not too far from Philly, so I would see him a lot in some workouts in Philly. You know what I mean? I knew Delonte because I would see him on campus or walking around when I came home. I knew Dwayne. You know what I mean? So I knew these guys. And when you know a guy, you're not playing with pressure.
You're not intimidated the same way as if you never met him.
So I knew a lot of these guys because they played in my city. You know what I mean? So it was just another game for me, man. But they were. I mean, playing against Jameer his junior year and playing against Jameer his senior year, it was like night and day, man. I remember how we prepped against him in the junior year, and we did a good job. We had a good defender named Howard Smith. Did a great job on him defensively. Man, that next year, it was nobody that could stop that dude. His range got deeper. He was shooting from almost the coach's corner. You know what I mean? He got smarter. He got stronger. He was just a nightmare to guard. You know what I mean? But the step he took from junior to senior year was incredible.
I remember that. A lot of guys, their big leaps are freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior. Junior to senior is kind of like maybe a half step, but it's not like he really, really upped his game from his junior to senior year.
He went crazy because his weakness was his jump shot his junior year. So we could sag off him. Man, senior year, he was shooting it from deep. I'm like, it's over now, man. And that's what I tell these kids, like, you have to be able to shoot because it opens your game up. You know what I mean? And I've seen it with so many players, even myself. I was a penetrator, you know what I mean? But when my jump shot was going, I was going to get 30. I was going to get 30 easily, you know what I mean? Because it was easy now. You know, I didn't have to go down and bang with these bigs like Bobby. You know what I mean?
You were nodding your head when I was talking about Ryan, but I remember you guys actually played the BU team. Do you remember who I was talking about?
I remember him. Yeah, we played BU a couple times, so I remember them.
Yeah, you guys faced them in the NIT that same year, and they were a different, that was the year that BU, so they're a small conference, but they took that St. Joe's team to the wire that went undefeated. BU was something special for the low major level that year. They won 24 out of their last 25 games going into the conference tournament. They were getting a whole lot of top 25 votes. When they did the extrapolated voting, they were 27th. Unheard of at that level. Even
was that John Holland?
What? No, before John Holland.
Okay.
Rashad Bell, Chaz Carr, Matt Turner.
Okay.
But it was even the next year, the Taylor Coppenrath, TJ Sorensen Vermont team that beat Syracuse was never getting the AP voting that BU was getting the year before. BU ran through the conference, 17-1, and they were saying if they just made it to the conference championship game, even if they got upset, they were going to get an at-large bid from the America East, which never happened. But they beat Michigan at Michigan that year. And they played Stony Brook, who was a terrible team, and BU was hosting the conference tournament, and BU didn't show up, and they got upset. They played that game 100 times. They won 99. Yeah. But then BU played you guys in the NIT, and they just didn't even show. You could tell those guys didn't even want to be there after the season they had. Yep. People were talking about them being an 11 seed out of the America East. Yeah. And when they came to play you guys, it was clear
we were ready
they were
too, because they had a lot of pump. They were like, look, so we came out ready.
And
so
they
come on.
They didn't show up because it was clear they were thinking NCAA, this is our year. Whole bunch of seniors, and when they got upset, it was like they didn't even want to play.
There was a lot of small schools that were good back in the day. Remember Northeastern is where JJ Barea went. Man, I remember playing against this dude. Like, I didn't know who he was. Yeah. Man, he was so tough.
Yeah. I will say
I keep hearing that.
His first 2 years at Northeastern, nobody on the planet thought JJ Barea was going to be an NBA player, except JJ Barea thought he was going to be an NBA player. And that, and then even after his junior year, it was like, come on, he's like 5'9", he's putting up, but like, my goodness, the career he went on to have.
So after we played against him twice, his junior and senior year, both years he was tough. And then we went into Portsmouth. It's Portsmouth. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, we had a good squad too in Portsmouth. We won Portsmouth. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to be the starting point guard. I'm like, he on my team, I kill him. Like, you know what I mean? But he wasn't sweet. Like, we had battles. So I'm like, I know I'm going to get it over him. As we walking around, he knew everybody. So I'm like, how this dude know? How everybody know him? Yeah. Played for the Puerto Rican national team.
That made all. I will say, if JJ Barea, and this is not knocking JJ's talent, incredible, but if he was an American kid, if he was a white kid or a black kid from America, I don't think he ever sniffs the NBA. And it's not a thing that they were like, oh, we're looking for Puerto Rican. It was being Puerto Rican gave him the ability to play on the national team and get international exposure, play against that level comp, and prove himself in a way that your typical 5'9" American kid just never gets that opportunity to go prove himself. So it's not that JJ wasn't. He had a 15-year NBA career, but that ability to go play on the international stage as a college kid allowed him to showcase himself and prove himself in a way that like most American kids don't. They don't get that opportunity.
He was tough though. Yeah. Even if he was American, I feel like, because when we went to Portsmouth, like I said, I thought I was starting. Yeah. Man, the first game he was starting, he turned Portsmouth out. I'm talking about he probably had the most assists in one. He had 19 assists. He killed Portsmouth. This one I was like, this guy is good. Then he went on to play in the NBA, and he was tough, man. I had to tip my hat off to him. He was a really, really good player, man. He was a tough dude, man.
He was another kid, too, I will say, that his junior to his senior year, he upped his game a lot. And then after that summer, after his senior year, a lot of guys don't. Because he had a very streaky jump shot in college.
Yes, he did.
He was only like 31% from behind the college arc in college. And he became a better shooter at the NBA level than he was in college. Because that was the big thing that, I thought the knocks on him when he was in college were, like, he's little, obviously. He's tough, he's tenacious, he's very fast with the ball in his hands. But is he going to be able to shoot enough at the NBA level where guys have to defend? Because no matter how fast he is, if you don't have to defend a little guy in the perimeter, there's only so much he can do if you're not having to come out on him. True. And like he really stepped his game up, his outside shot.
He did.
From
he was tough.
College to then that first, he went to the G League and he lit it up so much they just had to bring him up. And
that's why I tell all of the kids, like in Rhode Island, it's very diverse. Yeah. So a lot of Dominican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, whatever it is. I tell all them kids, listen, man, go get your passport. And try to get on one of them national teams. And I always use JJ because I'm like, the exposure you're going to get a head start. You know what I mean? Just playing in those leagues. You're playing against grown men. The basketball is different, completely different. You know what I mean? You're going to learn more and you're going to get more exposure. Yeah. So he did it the right way and he got the exposure he needed before he even got to the pro NBA camps or any of that. Everybody knew this guy already.
You mentioned something about pressure. Today's generation has got a lot of pressure on them, especially you had mentioned not looking at your stats, right? You wanted to go out and compete. I think that's one thing that the three of us shared in common is that you wanted to go out and compete. Yeah, you wanted to do well, right? So you're paying attention to what you're doing, but you didn't have that pressure on having to perform every night because you weren't looking at your stats. You were more concerned with the overall product that you were, showing people out there on the floor. How did you develop that type of mindset? Because the kids now that they're worried about their stats, they're worried about how they look on film, on the highlight reels and everything else. What was your take on that? What made you develop that mindset?
I feel like my brother, man.
Okay.
You know what I mean? My brother he always talked to me about everything. You know what I mean? So I never had to really worry about that. I feel like now with these kids, like my mom and dad wasn't coming to me like, hey, why you ain't do good? Why you ain't do that? Now these kids, like their parents are putting pressure. Social media, the society is putting pressure on these kids. Kids play basketball for fun growing up. It was a fun sport.
Yeah, it was fun.
Now it's a business because the parents see the money in it. The kids see the money in it. We was going to AU teams. We was just happy to be there. Now they're like, look, y'all sponsored by Nike. We getting sneakers. It's different.
Yep.
We didn't play for some material thing. We played out of love. This game, these kids don't want to play because they love it. They want to play because of what they're seeing on TV. It's something material of reason why they want to play. They don't play for the love of the game. You know what I mean? So if you're not doing something out of love, it has to feel like a job or something. Yeah. That's where the pressure comes in. And then you got your mom. Why you ain't do this? Why our moms and dads wasn't involved in our success at a young age like that? They would drop us off in camp and be like, look, I'll see you later on. Yep. And they wasn't asking us like how many points you scored. My mom and dad wasn't asking me how many points I scored in these games.
Did you have a good time? How was it? Yeah.
I'm like, Mom, I had 30. Good job, baby. I'll see. You know what I mean?
Keep it up. Yep.
Now it's not like that. Society is putting pressure on these kids. You're getting pressure from your parents, your friends, because it's not fun no more. It's a business. Now, if they don't score 20, they're like, oh, I'm not going to be able to play on that circuit. We wasn't thinking like that. You know what I mean? Now, life has changed. I always say society has changed because this is where we're getting now. These kids aren't going through the things that we had to go through. You know what I mean? So it's just completely different now.
So is it harder or is it just different?
I think it's harder on these kids. I think it's a lot harder than because I mean anything with pressure is just going to be harder. And the pressure is coming at a young age,
right?
And they're not ready to deal with that mentally yet because they're so young. So a lot of them fall because they don't have a parent talking to them and try to help them and guide them through it, through a mistake or a bad game. They're just like attacking them and telling them they got to do better. Yeah. But how do I do better? What do I have to work on? How do I work on it? How do I improve? Parents aren't concerned about that. They just want to pay a trainer, let them do the work, when a lot of it can be done at home. I tell parents, like, look, what we work on throughout the week is homework. You know what I mean? Next time I see you should be improved. You can't put all the pressure on me to make you a better player. You know what I mean? It has to come from you. You got to put some work in. I train you 2 times a week. That's not enough. You got to do some of this stuff at home as well. You know what I mean? So it's a lot that comes with it, but I feel like it's worse for these kids now. You know what I mean? Because they're looking at it wanting something back from it. We didn't really expect anything back. Like making it to the NBA was so far fetched. Like it's like when my coach told me an NBA team was up there, I was like, for me, like really, they think I'm good enough to put even.
Made it to the majors, was on a roster. He had been, minor leaguer for several years. Gets called up, gets put in a game, the last game of the regular season. Never gets a ball hit to him. Never gets to bat. That's the end of his career right there. They call it, you get a cup of coffee, and they say in the movie, like, for a lot of people to get that close to your dream, you can taste it. It would kill a lot of people. For you, I think the same sort of terminology, like a cup of coffee in the NBA, wasn't a 10-year career. For you, what was it like, that experience, and what was it like when it was over, and how long did it take you to make peace with the fact that, like,
that's a good question.
The NBA, a long term here wasn't in the cards?
When I got there, so how I made the NBA, my kids from the AU, they're going to laugh at me, the kids I train, because I tell them this story. It was a guy by the name of John Harnett. He used to have, Harnett. So this is why I'm crazy, because I had to deal with Harnett as a kid.
Man,
Harnett was a guy that didn't care. He didn't care. I saw him curse Allen Iverson out and kick him out.
Yeah, Harnett didn't care.
Like, he didn't care. And Allen Iverson was gold in Philly at this time. So Harnett used to do these trainings where everybody came.
Yep.
When everybody would leave, it would be a few stragglers left. Yep. Maybe overseas players that didn't get a job yet, or college players, high school players. I graduated, so I was waiting for a job. So we would go up to PCOM, where the Sixers used to practice, and we would kind of get those guys started for a preseason. You know what I mean? Play pickup and stuff like that. But sometimes other NBA teams would come and watch their players. Like, Coutinho was up there, so the Clippers would come and watch Coutinho. Right. Denver was up there. There was a few NBA teams up there watching. And Allen Iverson came in. Now, when I was young, I was a street ball player. So I used to make a lot of money because my friends would set up games. Like,
for sure.
Like, he's the best player here. You play against. So I used to play against these guys all across the city for money, and I used to always win. So I really thought I could beat Allen Iverson in the one-on-one. I was crazy, but I wholeheartedly really thought that. So when the opportunity came, when he walked in, I was like, look, I'm guarding him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did a good job defensively. So throughout the whole practices, the Sixers coach would talk to somebody and tell Harnett, like, yo, go guard Kyle Korver. So I would guard Kyle Korver, Lou Williams, Kevin Ollie, Allen Iverson. And it was just throwing me on guys. I'm like, what are they doing? So after the workout, my brother would always call me, how you do? I was like, I did all right, man. There was some scouts there, man. I ain't scored too much. And my agent called me after and was like, look, man, what you doing? And I'm like, I ain't do nothing. You know what I mean? I just played some good defense. He like, well, whatever you did, the Clippers want to bring you in. So that's how I got to the Clippers. You know what I mean? But it was through the hard work. That summer, I put in a lot of work. You know what I mean? I was working with my trainer, getting them ready. And when I got there, I was ready mentally.
Now, who was your trainer then?
My man named Mike. Nobody would know him.
Okay.
A guy named Mike. But he got me ready. And when I got there, it was different. It was a lot of plays. Yep. In the NBA, they wasn't waiting. It was moving fast. Right. So I didn't have time to really process everything. You know what I mean? So I was falling behind in the first week because I had to learn so much. So we went to Russia. First, everything, practices was in Russia because we had NBA Europe at that time. So I'm learning. So my agent's like, look, man, when you get home, they probably going to let you go. So I was like, dang. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not running these plays no more. I'm about to just start doing me. So we got back to Cali, and we had a blue and white game, and I had 16 points in the blue and white game because I played without a care no more. I was like, man, they gonna whatever, man. I'm gonna just play my game.
No pressure.
Play my game, no pressure. Had 16. They kept me. You know what I mean? We played some preseason games now. Now we playing against Steve Nash. I had 11 against them. I had 9 against, and I'm only playing in the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? I had 9 against Golden State. You know, so I started making some. So I'm starting to hear things like, look, they're gonna keep you. Sam Cassell will come up to me like, look, they're gonna keep you. Yeah. So I'm like, but it's still, I was just having fun, man. You know, I was in the NBA, so I'm like, look, it's fun. And but when they released me, I didn't feel no type of way. They was like, look, we want you to go to the G League. I was like, okay, but I left there knowing that I was good enough and I really belonged. The only reason I didn't stick was because, what was the coach name? What was his name? Dunleavy. Dunleavy was the coach. Yeah. Ellen Brand was on the team. Corey Maggette was on the team. Daniel Ewing was on the team.
Oh, dude, you duked down.
So I'm duked down.
My goodness.
You know what I mean? And he was the spot I needed because we had 3 point guards. I was the fourth.
Yep.
It was Sean Livingston.
Yeah.
They was trying to get Sam Cassell, like, look, get a team to Sean Livingston.
Yeah.
And then Sam was kind of like playing backup, but as a starter.
That was like his last good year.
It was like his last good year. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
they just had a good year before they beat the Lakers in the playoffs.
Yep.
So, and then Dan Ewing. I was killing Dan Ewing.
Yeah.
So I knew, I knew I was good. And then when they hit me with that, I was like, I was outscoring them. I was playing better defense. But I knew what it was. They hit me with the numbers game, but I left there knowing that I belonged, and I know I did good there.
Yeah.
Everybody told me I did good, so I left with no shame.
Right.
I left with a smile on my face, like, don't worry about it, Coach. I respect the opportunity, and I moved on. You know what I mean? But it was a great little taste of coffee I had when I was there.
Yeah.
Because the lifestyle was unbelievable. The hotels, the planes. I still never flew on a 2-level plane like we did going to,
Going to Russia.
Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Jumbo.
So it was a good little taste of coffee I had while I was there, and I really enjoyed it, and I left with my head held high.
So how did you know when it was time to hang him up for good?
That's a good question too, because my son was born, and my wife had left maybe 2 years before that to just start her own life in America, because she kind of felt like she was living my life.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, babe, I get it. You know what I mean? I was like, just wait till our daughter turned like 3. You know what I mean? And then you can do whatever you want. And she left, got a job and everything, and I was cool. But when my son was born, I mean, I remember her coming to visit me one time. My wife is only like 4'11", So she was coming through the airport, man. Had my daughter. We had a little dog. She had the doggy bag. She had the stroller.
Man.
In Europe, you can't meet them at the baggage claim. You got to wait.
That's right.
So
You
she
gotta
was
wait.
struggling. And I was like, I can't see her coming through the airport with another child. It's going to be too hard. And I didn't want my son to be around a bunch of women, you know what I mean, while I'm not there. You know what I mean? Because it was her mom, aunts. So I was like, I gotta be there.
You need a
for
male
my son.
figure around. No, I get it.
So I was like, look, this might. And then I was like, you know what? It was that time. Every year I was working out 3 times a day. That turns into 2 when my daughter was born. Then it turns into 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in Philly no more. I had to really come to Rhode Island and make a home.
Yeah.
But the workouts was in Philly. You know what I mean? The grind. That I needed that atmosphere.
Ain't nothing like home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was gritty. I needed to be in that to push myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rhode Island was kick your feet up retirement place. It wasn't the grittiness that I had. And I had friends that was gritty like me. Like, look, we waking up at 5, we gonna go lift, we gonna shoot after that, then we gonna go to a workout, then we gonna get more reps at home. I didn't have those friends here that would push me like that.
Yeah.
So I started to slip. My last year, I think I averaged like 13, but I was missing little layups. And I'm like, I'm like, I'm not working as hard as I used to work. I'm not putting that time in. Now I'm trying to get ready with a month left. It's July. I know I'm leaving in August. I'm starting workouts in July when
you can't do
I would
that.
wait like 2 weeks after the season to get a workout. So I knew it was time. And when I saw my son, it was like, look, I told my wife, I said, babe, I don't think I'm going back overseas. She's like, whatever, stop playing. I was like, babe, because I could have played like 2 more years. And I was like, babe, I think I'm done. And she's like, you serious? I was like, babe. She's like, Dawan, you could play. I was like, babe, I don't want to. You know what I mean? I'm like, babe, I ain't touched the ball since I've been home.
Yeah.
If I go back now, I'm not going to be good. I'm going to get over there and be trying to get in shape. You know what I mean? You got to go over there
You
in
got to
shape.
be in shape when you go. Yeah, for sure.
They'll cut you. You know what I mean? I was a
in a
little
heartbeat.
overweight. You know what I mean? So I was like, babe, I remember
looking
that.
like Khalid El-Amin going over there.
man.
No, man, you can't do that.
And I remember the last
Shout
year,
out to Khalid.
I went over there. I was slipping a little bit. So by the time I got over there, I was a little heavy. And they took a picture of me on the bike with all the tubes on. And I didn't like how my body looked. I had my shirt off. I was like, this
you
ain't
don't
it.
like it.
I was like,
look at
nah,
this
this
fat
ain't it.
mother going.
I was like, this ain't it. Arms in no definition. I was like, hell. You know what I mean? So I knew it was the end. You know what I mean? But my son kind of put the stamp on it. Like, look, I got to be here for my son, man. And I always was feeling passed away.
I know,
Yeah,
man.
man, but Harnett was different, man.
He had a huge funeral, man. Huge funeral,
man. He touched a lot of people's lives.
He really
man.
did.
And he was another one doing it from just like he would pick kids up and feed them.
Yeah.
And then take them home.
Yeah.
Like no,
Wonderful
now
man.
you don't even see trainers doing that
Yeah.
anymore. Ain't no trainers going. It was just different. Harnett was a great guy, man. He had the backing of NBA guys that he developed. I remember watching Mark Jackson.
Yeah.
Mark Jackson was terrible.
Mark, Sheed, all them cats,
You know what I
man.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I tip my head off to rest in peace to Harnett.
Mark Jackson. Good dude.
Rest in peace to Amir Campbell, too, my cousin that lost his life before I went to prep school. It's always tough talking about that, but it kind of changed my life. You know what I mean? So I always give him respect and shout out to the Johnson brothers that helped me get to where I was in my career.
Continue to heal well, man.
Thanks,
Continue to
man.
heal well.
Trying
Thank
to,
you for
man.
coming
It was
in.
so long ago, but it still hurt. You know
Yeah,
what I
for
mean?
sure.
You never get over stuff like that.
No,
man.
you don't,
It's
man.
been. I realized I've been alive longer without my dad than with him.
Wow.
I realized that 2 years ago now, if I remember correctly. And so I'm like, man, I've lived more time on this planet without him, and
Without him,
a
yeah.
lot longer memory because you don't remember your first couple years really. Still haven't. You never get over it.
Right.
You kind of hopefully work through it and learn how to live with it and still find happiness but you never.
Nah, you definitely
No
get
matter
over
how
stuff
much
like
time
that, man.
goes by.
It's tough, man. Losing people is tough. I lost 2 family members last week, man. I lost my aunt and I lost my little cousin. You know what I mean? So that's how I know I'm getting old now, man.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's starting to pass away now, man.
Shit, they passing away younger now.
Yeah,
You know,
man.
it's crazy
It's
out
crazy,
there, man.
But thanks for having me.
No, thank
fellas.
you
This
so
was
Thank you
much
for coming in.
This was great, man. I
for
appreciate
sharing your
it.
story, man. It's a powerful one that I think everyone should hear if they can. So thank you so much. Hoping you'll come back again.
I'll be
down the
back
road.
whenever you guys need me.
Appreciate
I love talking
you.
to you guys.
Awesome. I need to get some gear
Yeah,
too.
I'll ship some send me your address. I'll ship some stuff to you, man.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks
thank you.
again, fellas. No problem at all.
My man.
Thanks, my guy.
Appreciate you too.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
This was good, man. I like the setup and everything.
Yeah.